topic in this session is the genetic base of coronary artery disease and maybe its potential use in the clinic. As we know, coronary artery disease, or say the coronary heart disease or ischemia heart disease, the same name, is the most population cardiovascular disease in the world. The basic of coronary artery disease is because the coronary artery can be damaged or diseased and build up a plaque and a result of inflammation. There are some risk factors of the coronary artery disease. Some risk factors may be moderatable, and some is non-moderatable, such as age, gender, or genetic factors. Family history contribute to an increased risk of coronary artery disease and is independent risk factors. Maybe families with history of the early onset coronary artery represent in only 15% of the general population. But in the early coronary artery disease cases, accounts for about 72%. So the history of early CAD is a first degree relative approximately double the risk of CHD. And the variability is to evaluate the risk of the heritable risk of the cases is about 13 to 16%. We can use two different methods to study the genetic disease. One is by using the disease family, such as family CAD. This is always about two kind of genetic methods. One is autosomal, the other is recessive. And another, in most people, we can use Manning SNP to evaluate the association between the genetic risk factor and the disease. First, by using linkage studies in 1985, first molecular defect in LDLR can drive the CAD risk, and then ApoB, P69, and other genes were found. In 2003, first monogenetic antilogies of CAD, MEF2A, LRP, and DYRK1B were found. In 2007, first genome-wide association study were used to evaluate the relationship between the CAD and the SNPs. And this found about 30% risk increased the risk of CAD. Until now, 60 distinct genetic losses were found. And the modeling disorder associated with CAD risk were found is LDLR, ApoB, and PCSK9. And these were also genes related to the hyperlipidemia and the CAD. Another method is GWAS, genome associated study. And by this method, from the 2007 till now, and find about 100 losses associated with the CAD. And in our lab, from 2011, we found the C6ORF 105 area and the DMRTA and the other genes related to the common CAD in Chinese. So You can see from the 2007 first CAD GWAS was carried out, and until now, about 150 GWAS nodes were found, and it can explain about 10% of each scale of CAD. And by using these SNPs, we can construct a gene regulation network. The total number of the significant gene sets involved in CAD increased to about 39% since the 1000 genome zero-wide site association study from the C4D. From the 2015 to 2018, the genetic regulation network were increased from the 4% to 13% and described pathways specific for cardiovascular development, inflammation, lipids, kidney, and coagulation cluster together. Because the candidate SNPs are frequently shown to predict the intermediate phenotype such as hyperlipid, such as hyperlipidemia. But the most probable effect of managing on a clinic endpoint is through to regulation for an intermediate phenotype or several intermediate phenotypes. So evaluation of a solo candidate gene difficult to moderating managing with the explanation increased number of possible gene-gene interaction. So we can use another method to use the results from the GWAS by the genetic risk score is because the complex disease such as CAD, the effect size for one gene on clinical endpoint may be small. So we can try to use many variations in the genome to find the real gene influencing the intermediate phenotype and the disease. In 2005, one trial enrolled 3,172 patients undergo coronary angiography were evaluated for 3 sleeps and the intermediate phenotype such as LDL, HDL, TG from the cholesterol metabolism pathway. The GIS method detected a significant difference in CAD by GIS group. So after the 2005, year 2005, the combination of genes in predicted early onset CAD were performed. Well, any single mutation causes only a mildly increased risk, about 1.7. In combination, the SNPs, the likelihood of early onset CAD increased to 2.78 with 4 mutations. The genetics of early onset CAD appears to be multifactorial, recurring polygene mode to elucidate risk. Another method by using the multiple genes to study the CAD is artificial data set for CAD. The algorithm special relating non-diabetic patient CAD status to expression leaves of 23 genes and 6 specific age functions. At school threshold corresponding to 20,000 obstructive CAD likelihood. The sensitive and specificity were 65% and 43%. By epitope, they found classification by the expanded clinical mode, such as chest pain, family history alone, and with the addition of the gene expression score. The light reclassification improvement was 16%. And by the casting and the predicted trial, they used the diabetic patient and the non-diabetic patient and construct 23 genes site to evaluate the non-diabetic CAD uh, genetic risk. They found different way in the male and the female. Most important is neutrophil associated gene display significant sex-specific expression difference with CAD in men. About 95% of the neutrophil genes were upregulated, while the 98% were downregulated in women. The algorithm score was moderated correctly with the maximum percent stenosis in men and women. The average algorithm score increased monotonic with increasing percent maximum stenosis. Another way is by the SNP in the genome. Multi-locus genetic risk score were constructed from the variations in the human genome and evaluate the risk factor for the CAD. And in Finland and Sweden, by discovery and the prospective cohort, they found three SNPs associated with CAD. About 20% of individuals of European ancestry who are at roughly 70% increased risk of first coronary heart disease. But this genetic risk score did not improve over transitional risk factors and family history, nor did it have a significant effect on net reclassification improvement. The potential clinical use of this panel of SNPs remains to be defined in this trial. Then, the Framingham study used the three SNP PRS based on the former studies. By using find from the genome-wide association studies, GRS composed of three genetic variations associated with myocardial infection or other manifestation of CHD. About 102 genetic variations also used associated with CAD for its major risk factors. They add, furthermore, 89 SNPs associated with LDL, HDL, TG, or diabetes, blood pressure, and CRP. They estimated the association, discrimination, and risk reclassification of each GIS for incidence cardiovascular events. And the GIS counts of the risk alleles for each of the included SNPs. Total score remain from 0 to 26 and 0 to 204. In this study, 1,388 male and 1,626 female were enrolled, and the median follow-up was 11 years. Follow-up rate was beyond 85% at 12 years. A GIS composed of three SNPs associated with the CAD is an independent predictor of the cardiovascular events and of high coronary artery calcium. Modestly improves risk reclassification for incident CAD and significantly improved depreciation for the high coronary artery calcium. Then, in 2013, 46 SNPs GIS was made in Swedish studies, and 612 participation was enrolled, free of CAD at baseline and with completed information on the Framingham Heart Study Risk Score, composed and BMA. A total of 700 700 Sorry. A total of 700 city events were observed during a immediate follow-up of 4.3 years. These two and further two cohorts, regional study, northern East Spain, and Birmingham study were performed. Used the 8 genetic variation associated with CAD, but not with classic cardiovascular risk factor to generate a multi-locus GIS. And the results showed GIS based on genetic variation and related to the CVRFS was associated with a linear increase in risk of CAD events in two distinct populations. But we can see that the degree of the GIS is different in these two studies. Then Jupiter trial and Ascot and Kell and Provit Timmy 22 study by using the 27 SNPs GIS to evaluate the association of the genetic risk factor and CAD. Total enrolled 48,421 individuals and 3,477 events. And compared with the no genetic risk catalog, the multivariable adjusted hazard ratio for CAD for the intermediate genetic risk category was 1.34, and that for the high genetic risk category was 1.72. Genetic risk score identified individuals at a increased risk for both incident and recurrent CAD events. Relative risk reductions across low, intermediate, and high GIS catalog were also evaluated in this trial, were about 34% and 32% and 50% in the primary private trial by the using of statins, were about 3%, 28% and 47% in the secondary prevention trial. The gradient of the relative risk reduction with statin therapy across no intermediate and high GIS category was 13% and 29% and 48%. So the great absolute risk reduction in those individuals in higher GIS resulting in an approximate threefold gradient in the number needed to treat in the primary prevention trials. And the Medicase is a prospective population-based trial. About 27 SNPs GIS were used in this study and enrolled about 23,595 patients. GIS 27 and GIS 50 was associated with the incident CAD. CAD risk prediction by the model that included GIS 27 was improved by adding 23 additional SNPs. The cumulative incident among those with high GIS 15 or GIS 27 without self-reported family history was greater than those with no GIS with a self-reported family history in young population. And they also evaluated the genetic risk and health styles. The genetic risk were constructed by the 50 SNPs associated with CAD. And the four health lifestyle factors such as smoking, obesity, activity, and doubt were from the strategic goals of the AHA. Across 4 studies involving large population participation, genetic and lifestyle factors were independently associated with the susceptibility to CAD. Among participation at high genetic risk, a favorite lifestyle was associated with nearly 50% low relative risk of the CAD than was an unfavorable lifestyles. So even though the PRS can give us a potential use to evaluation the risk of the CD, but still have some limitations. First is GWA study. Most of GWA studies were in the European ancestry. About 50, 35 million samples were enrolled in the GWA study. About 150 carosomal losses were found, but exome sequence and exome chip data largely focus on the people of European descent. And the association between PIS and the risk of complex disease may difference in different populations. Assignment for family hypercholesterolemia mutations and assignment of genome-wide polygen scores would offer complementary information useful for risk prediction. Because for every 100% with early onset myocardial infection, um, a ROLE2 harbor and a rare coding mutation in a Mendelian family hypercholesterolemia gene, such as LDNR, PCSK9, or ApoB, whereas about 17 have a high genome-wide polygen score. The second is in Eric and Mesa study, which were followed by about 40 years. They used about the 6 million SNP schools and 5 additional polygenetic risk schools from 652 SNPs. The results showed the PRS was significantly, although the PRS was significantly associated with the 10-year CAD incident in Eric and Mesa, but did not significantly improve the discrimination, calibration, or risk reclassification compared with the conventional predicts. A proposed strength of the PRS is its ability to identify a subgroup for individuals with a relative risk of CAD comparable with individuals with monogenetic traits, such as family hypercholesterolemia. Polygenetic scores compared with conventional risk marks is that it can be assigned at an early age. This is the an important information. Screen with polygenetic risk score could provide motivation for lifestyle modifications, but there may be simple way to promote such intervention at the individual or population level. So for summary, some non-modifiable risk factors we can find, and as we know, these non-modifiable risk effects, such as genetic effects, we can adjust our lifestyle or diet or environment risk factors and model and um, Q treat the modifiable risk factors and to prolong the uh, appear of the CAD. Thanks for your attention and thanks again for the